There's a brutal truth about life that very few people want to hear. You don't grow in the sunshine, you grow in the storm. You don't find your true strength when everything is going your way, you find it when everything falls apart. When you lose all hope, when you feel like you've reached the end, that is where the beginning truly starts. I've lived this truth. There was a time when I felt unstoppable, when the company I built with my own hands was flying higher than ever before. And then, almost overnight, it was taken away from me. Apple wasn't just a business to me. It was my identity, my life's work, my dream in physical form. But I was pushed out, abandoned by the very people I once thought would stand with me. Imagine waking up and realizing the thing you poured your soul into no longer belonged to you. That was my reality. I had lost everything. And more than losing a company, I lost myself. That's the kind of fall I'm talking about. Not the minor setbacks, not the small rejections, but the devastating collapse that makes you question your very existence. And yet in those darkest moments, something powerful happens. The noise disappears, the illusions vanish, the masks come off, and you're left staring at yourself, raw and unfiltered. It's terrifying, but it's also liberating. When you're standing at rock bottom, the weight of expectation falls away. There are no shareholders to impress, no headlines to chase, no crowds demanding more. All you're left with is reality, and reality, as painful as it is, becomes your greatest teacher. You learn who you really are when you have nothing. You learn what truly matters when the world you built crumbles around you. Most people fear the fall, but I believe the fall is necessary. Because only when you've been stripped of everything can you begin again with clarity. Only when the old version of yourself has been destroyed can the new version be born. Think about it. The most beautiful rebuilds don't happen in comfort, they happen in chaos. A broken man, a broken dream, a broken life. Those are the foundations for greatness, if you're willing to embrace them. When I left Apple, I could have disappeared. I could have lived the rest of my life in bitterness, replaying betrayal in my mind, drowning in regret. That would have been easy. But the fall gave me something I didn't expect. It gave me freedom. Freedom to think differently again. Freedom to create without limits. Freedom to see the world with fresh eyes. It was during that exile that I built NextT, that I acquired Pixar, and that I discovered a creative energy I didn't even know I still had. And here's what I want you to understand. None of that would have happened without the fall. Without losing everything, I would never have been forced to strip myself down to the core. Without hitting the bottom, I would never have realized that my true strength wasn't tied to a company or a title, but to my ability to imagine, to create, to rebuild. So, when you lose all hope, when life knocks you down so hard that you can barely breathe, I want you to see it differently. Don't resist the fall. Don't fight to hold on to what is already broken. Instead, embrace it. Let it break you open. Let it strip you down. Because the fall is not the end. It is the preparation. It is the test that shapes you, the fire that refines you, the storm that clears away everything false, so that only the truth remains. And if you dare to embrace the fall, if you have the vision to see beyond the pain, then you will rise again. And this time, you won't rise as the same person. You'll rise sharper, clearer, stronger. You'll rise not because the world gave you another chance, but because you gave yourself one trusted leave. The dream you carried for years suddenly feels impossible. And in those moments, when you've lost all hope, most people quit. But what if I told you that your darkest hour could become your greatest power? Today, I'm going to show you the lessons I learned when I was at my lowest point, lessons that can transform despair into fuel. Because I know what it feels like to lose everything, and I also know what it takes to rebuild. When most people think about success, they imagine the light. They picture breakthroughs, applause, victories, and rewards. But the truth is, the light doesn't teach you anything. Comfort doesn't shape you. Ease doesn't challenge you. Growth only comes from the shadows. Darkness is where the lessons live. When I was thrown out of Apple, it wasn't just a professional loss. It was a personal wound so deep that I didn't even know how to process it. I had built my entire life around that company, and suddenly it was gone. I was humiliated, rejected, and for a while, I felt like I didn't matter anymore. That darkness was suffocating. Every day felt heavy, every thought a reminder of what I had lost. And yet, as I sat in that void, I began to realize something profound. The darkness was teaching me in ways that the light never could. You see, when you're winning, you're distracted. The noise of success makes it hard to listen, hard to reflect, hard to see the cracks in your own character. But when everything is taken from you, when silence surrounds you, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Darkness forces you to confront yourself. It makes you look at your ego, your flaws, your weaknesses. It shows you the parts of yourself that success conveniently hides. I had to face the reality that I wasn't perfect. I was brilliant, yes, but I was also arrogant. I pushed people away. I obsessed over control. And sometimes, I lost sight of the bigger picture because I was too focused on my own vision. These were truths I didn't want to admit, but the darkness left me no choice. And that's the beauty of it. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't flatter you. It strips you bare and forces you to grow. Think about your own life. The pain, the rejection, the heartbreak, the failures, these are not punishments. They are teachers. The loss of a job teaches resilience. The betrayal of a friend teaches discernment. The collapse of a dream teaches reinvention. But most people run from these lessons. They numb themselves with distractions, they hide behind excuses, and they try to escape the darkness instead of learning from it. And in doing so, they miss the very wisdom that could transform them. What I discovered during my darkest years was that pain is information. Every disappointment had a message hidden inside of it. Every rejection had a lesson about where I needed to grow. Every failure was a map pointing me toward a better version of myself. And once I began to listen instead of resist, I realized the darkness wasn't my enemy. It was my mentor. Pixar was born out of that mindset. At first, it wasn't a glamorous success. It was a small, struggling studio with more setbacks than wins. But the darkness taught me patience. It taught me how to nurture talent, how to build culture, and how to create not just for profit but for impact. And those lessons eventually turned Pixar into one of the most revolutionary creative companies in the world. The irony is, I would never have been open to those lessons if everything in my life had gone smoothly. So here's the shift I want you to make. Stop treating your pain as something to escape. Instead, treat it as a classroom. The heartbreak, the failure, the loneliness, they are all part of your curriculum. The question isn't, why is this happening to me? The question is, what is this trying to teach me? And if you dare to listen, you'll realize that the wisdom you gain in darkness is the very thing that prepares you for the light. When you've been broken, when you've lost everything, the temptation is to chase after everything all at once. To rebuild faster, to prove yourself quickly, to silence the doubts by stacking achievement on top of achievement. But the truth is, that kind of rebuilding doesn't last. It's fragile. It's built on ego, not clarity. If there's one thing I learned in my darkest years, it's this: when you rebuild, you must do it with ruthless simplicity. After Apple, my life could have gone in 100 different directions. I had money, I had a name, I had offers. But here's the reality: complexity is seductive, and it's deadly. If you try to carry too much weight while you're still wounded, you collapse. If you try to run in 100 directions, you never move forward. So I stripped everything down. I asked myself, what matters most? What is essential? What is worth pouring my soul into again? And the answer wasn't 10 different things. It was one. That's how Next T was born. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to prove people wrong, but because I needed to focus, to pour everything into one singular idea, one singular creation. And that focus gave me power again. It gave me clarity. Because when everything else is stripped away, when all the noise is gone, simplicity is what gives you strength. Most people underestimate the power of simplicity. They think success is about doing more, being everywhere, chasing every opportunity. But when you've fallen, when you've been through darkness, you realize that's a trap. Simplicity is ruthless. It demands that you cut away what doesn't serve you. It demands that you say no to distractions, no to comfort, no to anything that doesn't align with your core purpose. And that discipline is what allows you to rebuild stronger than before. At Apple, when I finally returned years later, I applied the same principle. The company was bloated, scattered, chasing too many products, too many ideas, too many directions. It was drowning in complexity. My first move wasn't to create something new. My first move was to cut, to remove, to focus. 4 product lines, that's it. Everything else, gone. And that single act of ruthless simplicity became the foundation for the Apple you know today. Rebuilding isn't about how fast you can climb back. It's about whether the foundation you lay this time will survive the storms ahead. And that foundation can't be built on complexity. It has to be simple, strong, and clear. Think of it like this. When a building collapses, you don't rebuild it by stacking bricks on top of broken rubble. You clear the ground. You strip it back to the base. And then you start again, deliberately, with precision, with simplicity. This isn't just about business. It's about life. When you've lost hope, when you're trying to rise again, don't overwhelm yourself with 20 goals, 50 plans, 1,000 expectations. Choose one thing, one direction, one mission, and then give it everything. That's how momentum starts. That's how clarity returns. That's how you transform despair into progress. And let me tell you something from experience. Simplicity doesn't make your life smaller, it makes it sharper. It makes it deeper. It allows you to build something so strong, so focused, that nothing can shake it. People will always try to pull you in 1,000 directions. But when you've known darkness, when you've lost everything, you gain a certain kind of vision. You realize that life is too short for clutter, too short for noise, too short for anything that doesn't matter. So when you rebuild, do it with ruthless simplicity. Strip away the excess. Focus on the essentials. Make every choice intentional. Because the truth is, you don't need more to rise again. You need less. Less distraction, less complexity, less compromise. The fewer pieces you carry, the stronger you become. And the stronger you become, the higher you will rise. There is a point in every downfall where you feel empty. You've lost the fight, the dream feels dead, and every part of you wants to just stop. That's what despair feels like. Paralyzing, suffocating, endless. But here's what I discovered: despair is not the end. Despair is energy. And if you know how to use it, if you know how to redirect it, despair can become your greatest source of power. When I lost Apple, when I was humiliated in front of the world, I felt despair like never before. For months, I carried it like a shadow. It drained me, but it also fueled me. Because the thing about despair is this: it's raw. It's unfiltered. It strips you down to the truth of who you are and what you care about. You can either drown in it, or you can channel it into creation. And that choice defines everything that comes after. I could have given up. I could have walked away from technology forever. spent the rest of my life in bitterness. But deep inside, despair whispered something else. You still care. You still have more to give. That whisper became my drive. That whisper became my energy. And so I used it. I didn't wait for hope to magically reappear. I acted, I built, I created. That's what most people misunderstand about hope. They think hope is something that arrives, like sunlight breaking through clouds. They sit in their despair, waiting, expecting the feeling to pass. But hope doesn't come from waiting. Hope comes from action. Every time you take a step forward, even a small one, hope is created. Every time you create something new, hope grows. Every time you refuse to stop, hope is reborn. That's exactly what happened with NXT. At first, the world wasn't paying attention. People dismissed it as irrelevant. But I poured my despair into that company. I let the pain fuel my obsession with design, with elegance, with perfection. NXT wasn't a global success, but it was a necessary creation. And eventually, the technology we built there became the foundation for the future of Apple itself. Despair transformed into power because I refused to let it sit idle. The same happened with Pixar. Animation was not my world, not my industry, but I threw myself into it. And what came out of that gamble wasn't just a company. It was a revolution in storytelling. Do you see the pattern? None of that would have been possible if I had let despair stay as despair. I didn't wait to feel better. I moved. I acted. And through that action, the energy of despair turned into the fuel for creation. And this is something I want you to remember. Power is born when you turn your lowest emotions into forward motion. Anger can destroy you, but it can also sharpen your focus. Pain can break you, but it can also deepen your purpose. Despair can paralyze you, but it can also push you to do things you never thought possible. The emotion itself is neutral. It's what you do with it that matters. When you're in the depths of despair, ask yourself one question. What can I build from this? Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's a stronger version of yourself. But build something, because creation is the antidote to despair. The moment you start creating, despair shifts from a weight holding you down into a fire driving you forward. And here's the secret. The world doesn't just admire people who succeed. It admires people who rise from nothing, who take despair and turn it into greatness. That's why comeback stories resonate with us. That's why we root for the underdog. Because deep down, we all know despair. We've all felt it. And when we see someone transform it into power, we are reminded that we can do it too.